Hello, Sam here again, and thank you so much for having a very successful Unit 1. Hopefully you've had a chance to get familiar with the Canvas system and also get to know each other a little bit in the community of our class here. And also now we've not only gotten started in the class, but we're also 25% done already, if you can believe that. What I want to do in this video is just reflect a little bit on Unit 1 and then give a quick preview of Unit 2. So we introduced ourselves, we shared some photos, we did some analysis across the class. It was really fun to look at all of that stuff. I'm going to share a few things later. But I also wanted to remind you that that introduction discussion forum will be there throughout the class. So if you ever want to remind yourself of who somebody is or what their situation is or their context, you can always go back there and remember who we all are. But now what I want to do is look at some of the analysis that people did across the class. So a couple people went ahead and plotted us on a map. You can see where people are located. A good contingency in Missouri, but also some people across the eastern part of the country and a little bit in the Midwest and Colorado. So nice to see the spread of people represented here as we think about mathematics curriculum. If we were condensed into one person, apparently our name would be J.K. Jackal de Gemst. So I'm not sure what to make of that. We got some demographic information about the class. We're mostly women, 15 women in the class, and only 4 men. And in terms of hair color, it's kind of a breakdown of brunette and non-brunette. There's 10 brunette people, and then there's 9 who are some version of not being brunette. And then in terms of the photos that we decided to share, it's kind of interesting to see the mix. Most of the pictures were indoor pictures, but we also got to see some people in outdoor settings. So that was kind of interesting to see what people are doing. In terms of mathematics teaching, mathematics education, we got some breakdowns of grades that we teach and classes that we teach. So there's a large contingency at the high school level, but also several middle school teachers and some elementary school teachers. So we span a pretty good set of grade levels, and we have 1 or 2 people, I think it was, by the time everybody had submitted, were at the undergraduate level or some kind of post-secondary setting. In terms of our course load, a lot of us have 1 or 2 courses that we're responsible for, but there are some that have 3, 4. There's a person who has 5 courses, and there was somebody who also has something like at least 8 courses that they are responsible for prepping. So when they think about curriculum, they've got a lot more to keep in mind than somebody who can really hone in on a certain course. We have the kind of resources that we use for class. So there's about 5 of us who really use a textbook or a predetermined curriculum, and we use that as is, generally speaking. There's a contingency of about 7 people who create their own curriculum, bring together their own materials and activities. But then there's also a group of people that are kind of doing a blended thing, doing a little bit of both, where they have a textbook, but they also pull that together with their own created materials. So I'm sure everybody does a little bit of modification and adaptation, but this is just on a general level, where do people fall? And then we also have, the different kinds of things that we're using. A lot of Pearson stuff, some district supplied materials, but several people noticed that they're using Go Math, so maybe a chance for them to link up during this class. And then other kinds of printed textbooks, also pretty popular. A couple people also looked at some things that are helpful to me as an instructor, looking at the length of the posts that people made and the submission time when people actually got their stuff done. That's helpful for me as I kind of think forward to the future units. I did want to make a comment too about the length of posts or lengths of assignments. I will try to, for the actual assignments for the units, I'll try to give you a general guideline about length so that you know whether I'm expecting something like 2 pages versus 10 pages. But whatever I say as a length guideline is just a loose recommendation. Feel free to go shorter, feel free to go longer, whatever you need to express your ideas. It's most important that you just get out your ideas that you want to get out and don't worry too much about what I might have mentioned for length. So I just want to let you know about that. And then in terms of timing, it was great to see people submitting a day or even 2 days ahead of the deadline. That's great. I'm kind of loose, and I'm willing to flex with you in terms of assignment deadlines. If you need an extension, just let me know. I'm happy to do that as long as you communicate with me. In terms of discussion forums, however, those deadlines are kind of more strict because other people need to be able to interact with you and be able to see what you're saying and respond during the unit. So with discussion forums, the earlier you can get started, the better. And then please, like I said before, come back to that discussion forum a couple times so that you can reply to people and actually have an exchange. So that is important in terms of deadline. But on the assignments, just let me know what you need and I can work with you on that. Okay, so next, just a few quick recaps on the reading and the lesson analysis assignment from Unit 1. So the article by Tar and colleagues was meant to show an example of how you can think about what the textbooks are affording students. And a key idea from that reading is that textbooks are not just about design or supplemental resources, and they're not even just about sequencing or developing the math topics. They're the basis of students' mathematical experiences. So it's important to look at, whether the materials have interesting problems. So that way students will hopefully find mathematics to be something where there are interesting problems. Do the materials engage students actively in exploring the mathematical ideas, or do they just present the ideas? Do they promote communication and discourse amongst the students? And then do they have tasks that will motivate all students? So that's kind of a frame for looking at the curriculum materials. And the article was also meant to show that motivating students is not about picking the right clip art or stock photos or putting the right sport on the cover of the book. Motivation is really about having things that are interesting and high-level mathematical opportunities. And it's also important to note that high-level math tasks are not just for high-achieving students. In fact, students who have struggled in the past usually benefit the most from having better math problems. In your assignments, where you used the Tar et al. Framework to analyze your curriculum materials, there was one big theme that came through when I was grading these, and that's the prevalence of procedures in our lessons, just in math ed materials in general in the United States. It's very pervasive in curriculum materials to have lessons where students are shown how to do a procedure, and then there are a bunch of practice opportunities. But how does this look from the perspective of the Tar article? Well, procedures make math seem more like a computer program than a human endeavor. And by the way, many of you connected the notion of math as a human endeavor to the idea of including real-world problems. And real-world is kind of one way to show some humanity, but we're really talking about something much more fundamental than real-world problems. Math as a human endeavor means that students are able to see that humans have created mathematics for particular reasons, and that there is a lot of creativity and interpretation involved in math. And probably most important, students should have some ownership over how they make sense of the math, and they get a chance to really discover some ideas, instead of just always being told the facts and procedures. If students can get into the math and make sense of it and discover some of it themselves, then they'll realize, like, oh, this is actually something that humans do, and they can kind of, conjure up and make this mathematics. But moving on, the prevalence of procedures also means that there usually aren't opportunities for classroom discourse, because students don't really have anything to debate or discuss if they're just supposed to be practicing a prescribed procedure. If it's already laid out what you're supposed to do, there's nothing really to discuss. It's just do it a bunch of times. And then finally, how does this procedures look from the perspective of high cognitive demand? Not that good. A lot of times those practice problems will be low cognitive demand. It will just be practice the procedure as I've shown it to you. There may be some procedures with connections to meaning, like try to tell me why this works and how do you know that the procedure is working. But usually the curriculum materials will kind of slip into low cognitive demand. So it's kind of up to us to try to either find better problems or to try to bring the curriculum alive and make some more highly cognitively demanding kinds of opportunities where students have to explain, they have to really think, problem solve for themselves, where they haven't been shown how to do it yet. Okay, to wrap up this video, I just want to give a quick preview of Unit 2. We're going to focus on making and modifying curriculum. So there's 2 readings about modifying curriculum, and then you'll get to do some modifications to curriculum materials to meet particular learning goals. So I'm hoping that you choose something that's relevant to your own teaching, and then we can think a little bit about some improvements or some adjustments to that curriculum. There are 2 required discussions in this unit. One is about the readings, and then one is about this issue of teachers creating their own curriculum materials. There's maybe some benefits and upsides for teachers making materials for their teaching, but there also might be some drawbacks or some reasons to be skeptical about teachers making their own materials. So we're going to have hopefully a good debate about that. And then the assignment for Unit 2 is to modify a lesson, so the details are available on Canvas. So I look forward to seeing you online.